You're starting your day with the all-new KCMO Morning Show with Greg Knapp on KCMO Talk Radio 710.
I'm bringing in Sarah Steelman. She is running against Senator Claire McCaskill to be your next U.S. Senator from the great state of Missouri. Of course, you know some of the details about her, state treasurer for a while, and she ran to be your governor. Now she's running to be your senator. Joining me now, Sarah Steelman. Sarah, how are you this morning?
Well, I'm okay. I'm very saddened and about what's happened in Joplin. It's just devastating to look at the pictures and know the suffering that those people are going through. Our fellow Missourians, and I just want to make sure that everybody helps them as much as we can, and our prayers and our thoughts are with them.
Absolutely. When you're talking about those photos, I was just posting on our Facebook page there that it looks like the towns you saw after a World War II bombing run in your history textbooks. It's just total devastation.
It really does. It's just, oh my gosh, it must have just been a huge multi-vex tornado, I guess is what they're calling it. I'm not sure if they've actually, ranked it on the scale yet or not. Have you heard that?
I saw EF3 at one point, but, who knows exactly. But as you say, there were a couple vortexes. It was like 3 blocks wide at its biggest point is what I understand. And the trail is 6 miles long and a half-mile wide. And it's just unbelievable devastation by something like that. It really makes you just sit back and say, wow, how does that happen and what can we do? So we've got all kinds of ways to help up on the page, and I know that the people of Kansas City are already reaching out and will continue to do so. So we'll definitely keep everybody up to date, and as you say, we got to keep praying for them too. So all of that will be going on today.
Yeah, and I know how Missourians are, and they will rise to the occasion, and people will be down there helping. And as I understand, the Kansas City heavy lifters are down there already doing
exactly.
Trying to help out with the finding survivors in the wreckage. So, Missouri will pull together, and we'll help the people of Joplin.
Absolutely, it's all you can do now is do everything we can to make it better as quickly as we can. Let's jump into what's going on with your run against Senator Claire McCaskill. Why should people pick you instead of Senator Claire McCaskill?
Well, I'll tell you why, because she is part of the problem in Washington, D.C. She would prefer to just talk about the problems, rhetoric versus results, basically. And we need people now in Washington who are willing to make hard choices, who are willing to stand up for what they believe in and recognize that we have a problem in this country, and it's called spending, and we need to get it under control. Just this past week, last week, we hit the debt ceiling without any fanfare or anything on May 16th. We are now spending money past our debt ceiling. And yet the Senate does nothing about this. And so what are we going to do? We're just going to wait till August 2nd, which is the date that Timothy Geithner, Secretary of the Treasury, has given people, I guess, to extend. He's doing all kinds of accounting tricks so that we can continue to spend until August 2nd when the pressure's really on. I mean,
if you were U.S.
change in Washington, and not the kind of change that Obama and Claire McCaskill have been talking about.
So, Sarah, if you were U.S. Senator Sarah Steelman right now, with what's going on with this debt ceiling, what would you require before you would say, yes, I'll vote to increase it?
Here's what I'd require. I would require a balanced budget amendment, and I would make that tied to a restriction in the size of government. And what I would do is target something like, and I'm an economist by training, I was state treasurer and I'm an economist, but what I would do is I would take a percentage, a ratio of spending to GDP, and GDP is
economic output.
Yeah, as our economy. It's the total size of the economy. Spending historically as a percent of GDP has been about 18% since World War II. Mm-hmm. Now, under Obama and McCaskill, it's up to almost 26%. In other words, the government is spending 26% is its share of the economy.
Right.
We need to get it back down. We need to So we not only need to balance the budget because, Democrats will argue that you can balance the budget with a tax increase. And I do not support a tax increase. So we need to balance the budget and restrict the size and growth in government. We do that here in Missouri. We did it with the Hancock Amendment, where our state government cannot grow faster than growth in your own income. That's the measurement that it is tied to.
Right. Well,
and if state government does grow bigger, that money is refunded back to taxpayers.
We're talking to Sarah Steelman here. She is running to be your next U.S. Senator in the state of Missouri against Senator Claire McCaskill. Of course, she has to get to the Republican primary first. We talked to Todd Aiken last week. He's trying to do it as well on the Republican side. But that's who the ultimate candidate will be on the other side, of course, Senator Claire McCaskill. And, there's one big problem with all of this, Sarah, that bothers me is we've come to this belief in America somehow that there's a set amount that we have to spend every year, and that amount should always go up. We never get to the point that we should just let's start from zero and see what we should really be doing.
Boy, isn't that the truth? And you make a very, very good point, and I agree with you. I mean, we could, you need to go through and look at programs and see what they're doing, why we're doing it. Is it constitutional? What's the best level of government to administer that program if it is indeed needed? Where do you get the most bang for your buck? I say it's closer to the people. It's more efficient to run things, in most cases, at the state level or at a local level. And actually then taxpayers can see the effect of their own taxes. So many people tell me, as I've been campaigning, is that they just feel like they're paying money into a dark, deep hole. And you know what? They are, because they never see the results of what it is the government is supposed to be doing. And, you're right. I mean, there's just automatic increases.
And here's the other thing is that as much as we tinker around the edges in what we call discretionary spending, things other than the military, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, other so-called entitlement programs, unless we get into that stuff, we're not really going to solve this huge problem of trillions of dollars of unfunded liabilities in these programs. Are you a supporter of what Paul Ryan has put forward? What do you think we need to do to go after Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security to make sure it doesn't destroy us?
Well, I think there's some good things in the Ryan plan, and I really commend him for coming forward and putting a proposal out there that people can discuss, because it took a lot of courage to do that. And, you do not see the Democrats doing that. You don't see, again, anybody in the Senate coming forward with any kind of plan. This is supposed to be the most deliberative body in the world, and they haven't put anything out. But I think there are things in his plan that I like. I definitely like the tax reform approach of flattening the tax and getting rid of a lot of the unnecessary paperwork and looking at deductions and subsidies that we're doing right now. I think that if we don't do something like that to get our economy going again, we're going to continue to have these high rates of unemployment, and businesses are not going to be creating jobs because of all of the uncertainty in the tax code. For example, Obamacare. I hear that a lot. But back to Ryan's plan, I think there are other areas that I'm still looking at in his plan. The Medicare. I don't like the fact that he actually included the $500 billion cut from Medicare that was in Obamacare in the plan, because again, that encroaches upon commitments that we have today. I think it's important for people to understand we need to protect what our commitments today and honor those. And look at, how we can reform these programs in the future, because people did pay into Medicare.
Sure, that's why I said nobody over the age of 55 will have a change. She's looking at 55 and younger, but I understand your point. Sarah Steelman here with me on the KCMO Morning Show. She's running to be your next senator out of Missouri against Senator Claire McCaskill. You mentioned the tax code. The latest details from our IRS says 51% of American households pay zero in federal income taxes. I think that's dangerous because if you got a majority of the population not paying at all, why do they care what the rate is? And that can really hurt us, and you can have politicians trying to buy their votes by increasing taxes on the rest of us. You mentioned that you like the idea of flattening the tax code. What do you think of the fair tax, the national sales tax that some are pushing to change our system to?
Well, like I said, I think a flat tax is a better way to go because, if we eliminate a lot of the loopholes that are now in the tax system, and let me talk about those loopholes for a minute, because so many of those particular advantages go to people who have lobbyists, who can spend a lot of money in Washington, who can go up and get access to whoever they want and they get what they want in the tax code, and then the rest of us end up paying the bill. And that's got to stop. I mean, I think that's what people in America want to see stop. They want people to be treated equally and fairly, and one way to do that is to close those loopholes and get rid of all the special interest provisions in the tax code.
Gotcha. I know we're almost out of time. I want to ask you one quick one. Let's go foreign policy. Libya. We have President Obama getting us into the no-fly zone in Libya. He went to the UN for approval, did not go to Congress for approval. Claimed the War Powers Act. Even though there's 3 reasons you can do that, none of those 3 reasons were in Libya. 60-day mark. You're supposed to be able to do this for 60 days without going to Congress. That day was Friday. Now he has written a letter to Congress saying, well, we're really not doing too much in Libya, so I don't need to go to you. What do you think of that?
Well, that is very disturbing. Very disturbing, and I think he always needs to go to Congress and consult with them when he makes a move as dramatic as he did. And, another issue that has concerned me is his latest comments on Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the speech he made yesterday, what struck me was the wide gap between the speech that he made on Tuesday and the speech he made yesterday. I don't know if you followed that.
Yes, well, yeah, we've been following it.
But he asked a lot of Israel in very specific terms, but not much from the Palestinians. And I just think this has to be a process where the Palestinians recognize Israel's right to exist within a secure and defensible border. And right now, the Hamas is take over the Palestinian government makes that almost impossible.
Yeah, it's hard to negotiate
opinion.
with someone who doesn't think you have a right to exist.
Exactly. And going back to the 1967 borders. Which Obama is it? Again, he seems to speak out of both sides of his mouth.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have that same feeling. Hey, we really appreciate the time. We'd love to have you back again very soon. We wish you all the best in your campaign. Sarah Steelman, she is former state treasurer, former state senator. She ran to be your governor, and she is now running to be your next senator from the great state of Missouri. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Greg. You all have a nice day.
You do the same, ma'am.
A KCMO Morning Show with Greg Knapp.